elevator. Throttle.
Right. I mean, it flies pretty well. Still need to trim up the elevator. Wow, that's tail heavy.
Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Eric.
And I'm John, and welcome back to John's RC.
And today we've got a special plane to review. This is the FMS 800 size Warbird, 800 millimeter size Warbird. John will talk to you about the specs. Then afterwards, I'm going to talk to you about the build. And then after that, you're going to see a video of John doing the Maiden on this plane. And let me re-emphasize, that's John that's going to be doing the Maiden on this plane, because unfortunately, guys, this plane, as beautiful as it is just outside of my skill level. So John, why don't you start?
Okay, so like my dad said, this is the FMS V2 plug-and-play model. I love these 800 millimeter size Warbirds because they're small but agile with the right size battery, and also we can fit multiple of them in our car. So the Zero got its name because during its service in World War II, it was designated as the Mitsubishi Navy Type 0 carrier fighter, and it was introduced in early World War II by the Imperial Japanese Navy Air Service. It also gained its reputation as a dogfighter because during its initial service in World War II, it had a kill ratio of 12:1. This is a beautiful replica of the Mitsubishi A6M30. Like I said, it came as a plug-and-play package, so that means we had to supply ourselves with our own transmitter, our own flight battery, our own receiver, and our own flight battery charger. The transmitter I have it bound to is my Spectrum DX9, and I have it bound to my DX9 instead of my NX8 because we received this plane before we got the NX8, so I just decided to keep it on the DX9. And the receiver I have it bound to is my Spectrum AR410 4-channel receiver. According to the manual, the recommended battery size is a 2S 1000 mAh battery pack. However, I checked some of the reviews on this plane, and many RC pilots said to use a bigger size battery that would still fit the plane. So I'm going to be using an Admiral 3-cell 1300 mAh battery pack. And also according to the manual, it has a wingspan of 750 millimeters. However, I checked the website and it says 800 millimeters. But my guess is that it's 750 millimeters because it looks smaller than the FMS F4U that was also 800 millimeters that we flew previously. So yeah, it has a length of 570 millimeters and it has an 8.5 by 6 inch prop. And it has a 20 amp ESC that's tied to a 2048 kV 1550 size motor. Okay, so now my dad will talk to you about the build process and the challenges we faced.
Thank you, John. So guys, pretty similar to the FMS F4U Corsair that we previously built. You did have to install, again, your own control horns for the elevators. You had to install that control horn and that control horn. Then there's one for the rudder, and then of course there's two for the ailerons. So as I mentioned previously, installing the control horns are not difficult. What really makes them challenging, again, are these tiny screws that they give you to install all of these control horns. So, you know, my eyesight is not as great anymore, and I kept dropping the screws, and it's very difficult to get the screws through the hole from one side to the other. So what I ended up doing was I just added just a touch of glue just to hold these plates in one place, let them dry, and then I was able to, you know, screw down those little tiny screws. So guys, if you have a magnetic screwdriver, that will help you guys a lot. And then on top of that, I ran into some CG issues with the plane. So if you look over here, right? So the manual calls for a 40 millimeter from the leading edge of the wing. So I marked those off right here with this little gyro tape right here, okay? So that's where the CG is supposed to be, 40 millimeters out from the wing. But even with this battery size, even with a 3S 1300 milliamp hour battery, my CG was way over here. You see these little red dots? That's where the CG is at. And because it's over there, that made the plane inherently tail heavy. So the only way, and I mean the only way I can get this thing to balance properly with this battery on the stated CG was I had to use an entire strip of these steel weights. There's 8 of them, and each one of these things are, what is it, a quarter ounce? So it's about 7 something grams each. So that's about 56 grams of weight I had to add to the nose. So if you come over here, I'll show you. So by the way, there's our AR410, there's the ESC, and inside there you can see all the lead or the steel weights that we had to put just to make this thing balanced. So, you know, I was really hoping that there was a mistake and really the CG is over here, but I looked at all the reviews and everybody's saying the CG is definitely at the 40 millimeter mark. So, yeah, so that was pretty much all the challenges that we faced on it. I mean, otherwise, it's a really simple build. I mean, all you really have to do is to shoot over the aileron cables from the wing through the fuse and then connect them back into the receiver using the Y harness, okay? And then again, these wheels, they basically just snap on, okay? And then you close the hatch. There's really not much to it. There is one thing I do want to tell you guys is when you guys finally get this thing bound, you have to make sure that all of the control surfaces, like the rudder, like the ailerons, and like the elevators, make sure that they're flush, you know, with the rest of the body. And the way you do that is you have to loosen this little thing right here. I don't know what exactly it's called. Maybe it's called a servo locking mechanism, but I had to loosen these up, okay? So that way these rods are free to move. Then what you do is once it's bound, okay, center all of your servos. Make sure that there's no subtrim of any kind, and then make sure that these are flat. Make sure that these are flat, and then move the rods back and forth to make sure that this and this, okay, are flushed and they're centered. Same thing with the ailerons. So what you have to do with the ailerons is you have to remove the clevis, okay, and make sure that this surface is flat, and then go ahead and turn the clevis either left or right to make sure that they're flushed. All right, so as we were mentioning before, John did have to do the Maiden because, as you can see, this plane does not come with any kind of artificial stabilization. So there's no AS3X, there's no safe selects, and there's no built-in stabilization in the fuse itself. You know, we are using an AR410.
And I also want to say one more thing. If you're using a spectrum transmitter, after you bind it, make sure that all of the control surfaces are going the right way, because for us, when we bound it, the elevator was reversed. So yeah, just go into your servo set if you're using a spectrum transmitter and unreverse that. So yeah, let's go on flight, guys.
All right, guys, see you at the flying field.
Alright guys, we have the Zero all plugged in. As you can see, everything's working.
So give me right aileron, left, rudder, elevator, throttle.
Right. Yeah, here we go. Hopefully it doesn't crash. Looks like it's taxiing straight. Have to get used to the sensitivity of the gimbals on the DX9. Kind of used to the DX or the NX8. All right, taking off. All right, the Zero is in the air. First thing I noticed, even with those weights, it still looks like it's just a tad bit tail heavy. I'm gonna trim that out. I mean, it flies pretty well. Still need to trim out the elevator. Wow, that's tail heavy.
It's pretty stable. I have to get used to like I said, I have to get used to the gimbal sensitivity on the DX9. Because the NXA is not as sensitive. It's still going up, okay. Okay, I think that's finally trimmed out. Let me do a low pass. Looks really cool in the air. It's very fast. Really nice with a 3-cell battery. It can also go slow too. Hello, birds. It's a really nice flyer. It's very smooth. Let me do a loop. Doesn't look like it needs expo or anything. What's my time? 30 seconds. Okay. Landing. Okay. This might be a bit hard because it's fast. Up. Okay.
Landing, John. Good.
Very cold. Hands are numb. Alright guys, that was my maiden flight on the FMS Zero. It flew very well in the air. It was very stable. I was able to do my standard maneuvers such as upside down flying, loops, rolls, and all of that. I did have to trim it out even with all of the weights. It was still tail heavy, so I had to do plus 72 trim on the elevator. So hopefully we'll get that fixed up by putting more weight in there. But yeah, it did fly pretty well, so thanks for tuning in to John's RC. And if you're new to our channel, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Bye guys!
Excellent flight, John. Very, very, very nice flight. So you're trying to tell me that even with all that weight that we put in, you still had to trim for tail heaviness?
Yes.
Wow, that's unbelievable. Well, I'm happy that you had a successful flight, John. Really, really good job. Good job, buddy.